My name is Douglas Lackey. I have two lives. I'm a professor of philosophy at Baruch College in the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. We are in the seminar room of the philosophy department of Baruch College right now. But my night job is to write plays. And I have a new play coming out. It will be opening in a week and a half. And it is about two philosophers. The first time I have written about philosophers. And the two philosophers are real people. One is Hannah Arendt, who is a professor of philosophy at the New School on 14th Street, 20 blocks away from where we are now. And the other professor was Martin Heidegger, who was a professor at the University of Freiburg, which is in Germany. And these two philosophers met in 1924. He was the professor, she was the student. They commenced a romantic affair, and that romantic affair lasted for 51 years. And over the course of time, Hannah Arendt became interested in Jewish history and Jewish culture and wrote about that. And Martin Heidegger became a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party. Nevertheless, despite these differences, their relationship continued for 51 years. I think that's an interesting situation, and I decided it's a great story, and I would write a play about the two of them.
If you see pictures of Martin Heidegger, you do not think this is a charismatic or attractive man. If you see one of the few television interviews with him, he is absolutely not a charismatic and attractive man. But many of his students wrote about how mesmerizing he was and how sexy he was in the classroom. And in including these scenes of lecturing, Doug provides the play and the actor playing Heidegger with the opportunity of showing that charisma.
This is not the first play about the two of them, but previous plays have concentrated on the details of their letters. I'm interested in the details of their philosophical thought. I think that they were attracted to each other because they were both philosophers, and they found in each other philosophical minds, and that was one of the great bonds of their relationship. So my play has a lot of philosophical ideas which previous plays about the two of them did not have.
Doug shows us the extraordinary intellect and the extraordinary strength of Hannah Arendt. In the play, she is a person who can recite and translate ancient Greek from memory. She is a 19-year-old woman who is capable of taking the initiative in a romantic relationship, something that, at least today, we don't think of as being common in the 1920s. She is someone who articulately and passionately argues against Nazism, argues for the foundation of the State of Israel, is willing to defend herself when she is attacked for being critical of the State of Israel, and in the same scene also challenge Heidegger on his rationalizations of his behavior during the Nazi years.
This play has a story. There is a narrative sequence of events where one event leads to the next and leads to the next all the way to the end. So the first reason I think you might be interested in going to see my play is it has a really good story, a really interesting story. You wonder, how is it that someone committed to Jewish causes could maintain a relationship based on attraction with someone who was actually a card-carrying and very public member of the Nazi Party in Germany during the Hitler years.
This play required a lot of preparation on my part. It is a play of ideas. It deals primarily with Heidegger's ideas, more so than Arendt's, because it begins with Arendt as Heidegger's student attending his lectures. And so I had to quickly brush up my Heidegger, as you would brush up your Shakespeare. I had not read Heidegger, I think, since high school. And he is not the clearest writer in the world. It was also necessary to read the works of Arendt's that are addressed in the play. Her New Yorker articles on the Adolf Eichmann trial and the origins of totalitarianism. So this is a play that required quite a bit of research.
So, you might think from what you have heard that this play is a kind of Romeo and Juliet story. But it is a Romeo and Juliet story of the 20th century where the obstacles, I think, are much bigger than were faced by Romeo and Juliet. They only had their parents to deal with. In this story, it's Jews versus Nazis, and that's pretty big, and that's pretty serious. But there was another thing that was prompting me as I was working on this play, and that was the rise of Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. I was interested in the story of Heidegger. Here is this guy, one of the great philosophy professors of his time, obviously a very smart man, obviously not believing in the ideas of Nazism because they are too simple and too stupid, nevertheless collaborating with the Nazis, throwing his hand in with them because he finds in this an opportunity for personal advancement. One wonders when one looks at all of the people around Trump, how many of them really believe in him, and how many are doing this just because it is an opportunity to advance your career or an opportunity to make money or something like that. I was particularly interested in Donald Trump's followers. Donald Trump is a stock figure. We know what he's like. There are lots of people like Donald Trump around. But the people who are following Trump, who were chanting at his rallies about Hillary Clinton, lock her up, I was very worried by these people. How could they follow him? How could they not see through him? The same problem comes up for the Germans, even worse for the Germans in the late 1920s and in the late 1920s and in the early 1930s. Why didn't they see through Hitler? Or if they saw through him, how did they tolerate him? So that's another element that's going on in the play. And then I have to say, because I'm a philosophy professor, there's a philosophical dimension here. I take Heidegger to represent the irrational spirit in philosophy, and Hannah Arendt to represent the rational spirit in philosophy. She was a Marxist, and Marxism is a form of rationalism. Heidegger was an existentialist. Existentialism is a form of irrationalism. Those two currents of thought, the rational and the irrational, clashed in the 1930s, and across philosophy, the irrational won and defeated the rational. It was a tragedy of ideas inside of philosophy when this happened.
People who are familiar with Hannah Arendt as the author of The Origins of Totalitarianism, as someone who wrote about the great evils of Nazism and Stalinism, would probably be surprised to find out that she had had a romantic relationship with Martin Heidegger. I know when I first heard about it, probably about 20 years ago, I was surprised to find it out. And that is a reality. It's not surprising that she had an affair with Heidegger before the Nazis came to power. What is surprising is she resumed a friendship with Heidegger after the war was over and after he had collaborated.
So, the play is called Arendt Heidegger, A Love Story. It's going to be performed at the Theater for the New City, which is on 1st Avenue and 10th Street in the East Village. And it will be performed starting on September 27th and finishing on October 14th. There are 3 weeks. There are 12 performances. Each week we perform on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 8 and Sunday at 3. Tickets are $15, but for students and seniors, tickets are $10.